All right, so last meeting, we were able to finish public opinion and spiral of silence. The first part for public opinion and spiral of silence. So according to this theory by Elizabeth Noel Newman, sinasabi dito na whatever opinion is popular, doon sumusunod ang isang tao. Or kapag hindi popular yung opinion niya, they just keep, or he or she just keep that opinion to himself. Hindi siya encouraged and motivated to say the opinion kasi parang pakiramdam niya, wala siyang kakampi. It's compared to the popular opinion na ang pananaw is maraming sasang-ayon or marami siyang makukuha support because kilala yung opinion as compared doon sa hindi kilala. Alright, to give emphasis on that, let's move to the key elements of the theory. So according to the spiral of silence theory, most people have a natural and most unconscious fear of social isolation. That prompts them to constantly monitor the behavior of others for a sign of approval and disapproval. So most often, mas gusto natin yung sign ng approval. Diba? The sense of belongingness. That's why, kapag halimbawa bago tayo sa grupo, in-observe natin kung ano yung trend inside the group. Kasi we don't want to be out of place. Somehow gusto nating ma-belong doon sa group na yun. So, sa ibang pananaw, ang tawag, pwede nating tawagin na pakikisama. Ganon. So, people also issue their own threats of isolation. So, mostly unconsciously. Kasi we have this drive, we have this feeling na gusto nating gusto natin na somewhere to belong to. May ganun tayo, unconscious behavior. Right? So through behavior such as criticizing someone, turning away from someone, growling at someone, laughing at someone, and so on. So gusto nating ma-avoid yung mga ganitong pakiramdam. Kasi para siyang, hindi siya para. It's really sending a negative feeling as compared to the feeling of belongingness. Yun nga, to avoid isolation, people tend to refrain from public stating their views on controversial matters when they perceive that doing so would attract criticism, scorn, laughter, or other signs of disapproval. So kahit alam natin na pakiramdam mo, tama yung opinion mo, pero yung grupo na kinabibilongan mo, or say for example, isang controversial issue, may pananaw ka towards that, pero hindi siya kagaya ng pananaw ng karamihan, hindi mo lang siya sinasabi. You just keep your peace. Kaya nga silent. You just keep silent. No. Kasi feeling mo, it's an odd thing. Yun. So halimbawa sa Amerika, di ba? It's a controversial issue there. Patalamak sa kanila yung what do you call this? Yung teenage pregnancy. And also yung premarital sex. Nawawala yung kanilang virginity at the age, at such an early age. Parang ang pananaw nila sa pagbibigay ng sarili sa ibang tao, sa boyfriend, sa girlfriend, minsan nga casual lang di ba? Is trending, cool ka pagka ganon. Diba? So, ikaw, halimbawa, napunta ka doon, coming from a conservative family, coming from a conservative culture, hindi mo na lang ma-voice out yung pananaw mo towards that. Kasi makikriticize ka ng Western culture. Diba? Kumbaga, most Asian people there, kung mapapansin nyo din, criticized pa rin and discriminated in a subtle way. Hindi nawala. Sabi nga ng professor ko nung college, nung master's ko, he has a green card. Yes, tama ba? O citizen siya sa Canada, di at green card yun. Basta ganon. Citizen or basta nakakapag back and forth siya sa Canada. Pag kita ng tao na hindi ka, na Asian ka, Filipino ka, especially yung mga whites doon, still, mararamdaman mo na meron pa rin discrimination. Yun. And also, syempre, pagka ganun, may iba't iba. Yung pananaw mo, yung lifestyle mo, or yung pananaw mo sa buhay, and yung beliefs mo, especially sa culture, when it comes to your sexuality, ganyan, hindi mo naman ma-voice out kasi parang hindi ka cool, hindi ka in. Ganon. So what else? Conversely, those who sense that their opinions will meet the approval tend to voice them fearlessly. And at times, vociferously. So, halimbawa, yung opinion mo ay maraming a-approve, maraming papayag, at maraming kang magiging kakampi. O tahasan mong sasabihin yung opinion mo. You even brag it out. Diba? Yon. Then, indeed, speaking out in such a way tends to enhance the threat of isolation faced by supporters of the opposing position. Di ba kaya may tinatawag na pag halimbawa yung pananaw mo, hindi ka kaayon dun sa pananaw ng karamihan, ina-isolate or kakaiba ka, weird ka. Ganon. So, hindi ka pinapansin. Or worst, pagka teenager, nabubuli. Kasi hindi siya, yung pananaw mo is kakaiba dun sa pananaw ng mga tao sa paligid mo. Ganon. What else? Saan ako? So, for reinforcing their sense of being, kaya may mga kabataan na loner. Kasi, but somehow, halimbawa may kakilala, may naging friends kayo, or may kakilala ka ng high school na loner, perhaps kung babalikan mo siya ngayon, kakausapin mo, malalaman mo, mas maintindihan mo kung bakit pinili niyang mag-isa. Perhaps may mali-discover ka na mga bagay-bagay about his or her opinions na tawag dito, na mas malalim kesa doon sa kesa doon sa sikat or popular na paniniwala. Ako, I believe yung mga taong loner, they just choose to be alone kasi parang feeling nila hindi sila maiintindihan dahil may iba silang pananaw. And most likely yung mga pananaw nila na yun mas malalim pa. Feeling nila hindi sila tanggap ng society, especially halimbawa sa school, mga private schools. May mga estudyante dyan, loner, sila lang mag-isa. Kasi at pananaw nila, weird, ganyan. Kasi may mga may mga ideals, may mga perspectives sila na hindi maintindihan ng kapwa nila, kabataan, because probably malalim na tao to. At nag-excel lang sila and little that we know, itong mga loners na to nung high school, sila yung nag-excel after high school. Kasi that's the time that they were able to find their place. Diba may mga dyan, may mga hindi nawawala sa isang batch na high school. Nung high school, ganito yan. Ganyan. Tapos college, bigla siyang nag-glow up o kaya bigla siyang umarangkada ng bonggang-bongga. It's because nung high school, hindi siya belong doon sa group. And then, nung college, siguro after work, or after siyang graduate, nung nag-work na siya, doon lang siya nakarampa ng bongga. Dahil during the time, doon niya na-out yung kanyang opinions about life. Doon siya nakahanap ng kakampi. Panahon lang yan, guys. So, continuing, thus, a spiral process begins. The dominant cop becoming ever louder and more self-confident, while the other cop becomes increasingly silent. Dahil yung isang kampo, sila yung malakas sila yung kinakampihan, sila yung approving group. So, sila yung namamayagpag. Meanwhile, yung hindi masyadong popular na opinion, although minsan may point naman, kaya lang, dahil hindi yun yung tanggap or hindi yun yung approve ng society, ng grupo, during ng isang grupo na yun, hindi sila kumbaga, they do not really they do not really pursue to give out their opinions. Parang what's the point? Di naman paniniwalaan or di naman i-approve. Alright? So importantly, the spiral of silence occur only in connection with controversial issues that have a strong moral component. So, halimbawa, yun nga, isang Asian teenager, Filipino, napunta siya sa Amerika, doon na siya nag-aral. Siyempre, ang mindset ng mga kabataan doon is masyadong liberated. Diba, okay lang sa kanya yung, they could try anything. Diba, okay lang sa kanila yung explore ang kanilang sexuality to the point na hindi sila, kumbaga, hindi naman sila ganun nakokontrol masyado ng magulang nila. Kasi may 911 dun eh. Diba? Tapos, as compared sa disiplina meron ang mga Pilipino, napakot sa tsinelas at sa sinturon, doon bawal paluin ng mga bata or ng kabataan because there is just one call away. Tsaka masyado ang implementation ng child abuse. Although para sa atin, it's discipline. Diba? And also, yan, yung pag-explore ng sexuality nila, di ba? Makapagpalit ng boyfriend o kaya ng girlfriend, akala mo napapalit lang ng damit. Tapos, kumbaga, di ba ang pangaral sa atin, boys and girls, di ba? Ingatan ang ating puri. Ibigay lang sa taong nararapat. Especially, lalo di ba sa girls ang pangaral, yan ang pinakamagandang regalong na ibibigay mo sa iyong mapapangasawa. Ganon din naman sa boys. Di ba? Kumbaga, you only give yourselves to the people who deserves your love. Ang pinaka-deserving, syempre, yung mapapangasawa mo. Yung magiging asawa mo. Or yung asawa mo na mismo. Kasi sinabi kasi mapapangasawa, baka naman hindi pa kayo kasal, jugs agad. Diba? So, kumbaga, yung mga kabataan, especially yung mga Asian or Filipino youth nasa Amerika, na they are still into the tradition of keeping their virginity intact hanggang ikasal, diba? Hindi nila sinasabi yon na sila ay virgin o sila ay they do not favor premarital sex. It's because hindi siya matatanggap on that certain community. Because most of the kabataan or the youth in American youth ay talagang out and about. That's reality. Diba? May nabalita. May akong kakilala dito nung nasa Pilipinas siya, matimtiman, sobrang bait, parang hindi ka makabasa pinggan. Tapos, nung nagpunta sa Amerika, kasi nandoon ng inilabas lahat ng dapat ilabas. Yun. Apart from the sexuality, yeah, and also yung issues ng ng virginity and premarital sex. Ganyan, about amongst the youth. Also, yung the way ng pananamit, di ba? Nung araw, pinakatago-tago ng nanay mo yan. Di ba? Pero because of the influence ng siguro ng iba't ibang culture from the West, also here, pati yung East, nahawa na tayo. But we should come back to our core. Di ba? Na let's just have yung parang yung kwento about the pearl. Ang perlas, ang tagal itinago sa clam para maging precious. Anything precious, ganon din naman ang diamonds. Diba? Anything precious and valuable are kept for so long. And only those who are privileged can see those precious items. So, read between the lines na lang, guys. Diba? And, ano yung kumakalat sa TikTok na yun? Yung, kaya hindi ikaw yung pinili. Ayun, naalala ko na. Kaya hindi ikaw yung pinili. Kasi, karaniwan, di ba kasi karaniwan, ang pinipili, yung mura at yung cheap. Ikaw kasi, precious ka, tsaka mahal. Kaya, hindi ka napipili. Parang double-bladed sword. Na parang, ikaw, kaya hindi ka napili, is, may value ka. Hindi ka nila afford. Kaya, yung mga pinipili, sila yung medyo afford mo yung kasi nakasale at saka cheap. So, hindi ko alam, nasa TikTok yun eh. I know you get my point, guys. So, isa pang mga, why is it called parang controversial and moral component? Kasi karamihan sa mga kabataan yan, yung makapaghanap ng jujuwain wagas. Diba? Kumbaga, kasi yun nga, there's one time, tinanong ko yung mga dating first year, I think third year na sila ngayon, sa agriculture. Mga estudyante ko dati sa agriculture. Ako, sabi ko, tropa-tropa lang. Out of curiosity, sabi ko, bakit, anong reason? Bakit feeling mo? Bakit diniretso ko, bakit anong reason? Bakit yung iba sa inyo, juwang-juwa, ganyan. Hindi mo makapag-intay. Ma'am kasi, seryoso ang tanong. Open lang tayo, parang, nagbabanding lang kami. Kasi parang, basta, nagbabanding lang kami. Yung sinabi nila, ma'am, kasi feeling namin, hindi kami belong. Pagka wala kami jowa. Kinukwento pa nila, grade 7 daw, may jowa, grade 8 daw, grade 15 anyos, may jowa, ganyan sila, but also sila, wala. Kasi yung sa generation nila, I don't know if it's consistent up to now. Na gano'n, parang hindi sila belong. Dahil wala silang someone. Yun nga, jowa. Yun nga, dyan, pumasok pa rin yung spiral of silence. So, yung iba naman, so how to apply it, mga hindi sang-ayon sa hindi sang-ayon sa pagjojowa agad, they just keep their peace. Okay, sige nga sila mag-isa eh. Diba? Nagkakaroon ng isolation. Tapos tanggap nila. At ahead yung pag-iisip nila. Perhaps influence ng parents, sabihin na, huwag ka magmadali, there's always time for everything. Baka masigit pa yung mamimit mo in the future kapag trabaho ka na, kapag titulado ka na, diba? is always, kumbaga, parang in God's time, ay meet mo yan. So, hindi mo kailangan sumunod to the bandwagon. On. Alright? What triggers a person's fear of isolation is the belief that others will consider him or her merely mistaken but morally bad. So, yun nga, di ba? Parang, kaya criticize siya, parang, yung going back doon sa pananaw ng isang Asian teenager na nasa Amerika. Parang hindi siya, mali siya doon. Okay lang. You can express yourself. You're in America. Diba? The land of the free. Mistaken. Alright? Accordingly, issues that lack a moral competence or on which there is general consensus have no room for a spiral of silence. Next. As demonstrated in 1965 German federal election and other examples, the actual popularity of an opinion does not necessarily determine whether it is or whether it will eventually predominate other opposing views. An opinion can be dominant in public discourse even if a majority of the population actually disagrees with it, provided that most people falsely believe that the view is unpopular and refrain from expressing it for fear of being isolated. So, even yung opinion ay to disagree something, basta yun ay yun ang dominating dun sa isang society. Still applicable doon ang spiral of silence and public opinion. Halimbawa, dito sa atin, di ba, isang sa mga controversial issues yung vaccine. At marami ang negative. Negative ang kanilang pananaw. Kasi parang, alam mo yung masyadong tayong superstitious eh. Iba superstitious, yung iba naman, scientifically, they believe. They believe na hindi pa ganoon kumbaga, hindi pa siya ganoon na efficacy niya is just for emergency use. Kasi may ano yan, kumbaga, halimbawa, it will really take time pa bago natin malawan lahat ng side effects. Nasabi, ito lang yung magiging side effect, lalagnatin ka, and then afterwards, pero yung long term, hindi pa natin alam. So, medyo skeptic ang mga Pilipino when it comes to the vaccine. Medyo negative. Pero yun ang popular opinion ng lahat. So, yung mga agree sa pagpapavaccine, hindi na lang nila sinasabi na magpapavaccine sila. As compared sa Americas, diba, after na-release yung vaccine, 10 million agad yung nagpa-vaccine. Right? Next. Public opinion is limited by time and place. True enough. Kung ano lang yung trending during the time, kung ano yung controversial during that time, yun lang siya. Eventually, mapapalitan din naman siya. Alright? So, halimbawa, ang daming controversial issues. Halimbawa, yung public opinion about yung sa LGBT community. Diba? Noong araw, controversial siya kasi hindi tanggap ang LGBT group. May conception pa na sakit daw yan, nakakahawa daw yan, hindi daw yan. Kumbaga, yung mga ganyan, ang mga na belonging to that group is hindi daw matatanggap sa langit. Ganyan, may mga ganong opinions. But now, di ba, people are already striving for, even hindi sila belong sa LGBT community, merong mga tao na advocacy ay to give equality amongst the LGBT community. Na tao din sila. Diba? Na-avert na yung situation. Kaya nga, yan, panapanahon siya. Okay? With view exemption, a spiral of silence holds sway over only a single society, a nation or cultural group, or for only a limited period. True enough. Parang dati hindi nga makapag-out yung mga ano, 'di ba, ang LGBT community, halimbawa, may bakla sa pamilya, hindi kagad makapag-out 'yan. 'Di ba? Dahil lalo na sa magulang. Kasi alam nila, kasi ang society, ang dictation ng society, sakit 'yan, nakakaawa 'yan, 'di yan maganda, sumpa, ganon. But now, 'di ba, may mga lumalabas pa mga advocate na bilang magulang, dapat ikaw yung unang tatanggap sa kamag-anak or sa anak mo na tingin mo sa tingin mo ay tingin mo ay belonging to the LGBT community. Ikaw ang unang yayakap, or kung halimbawa kapatid mo yan, ikaw ang unang tatanggap doon sa kanya choice. Hindi man choice, kasi sinasabi, yung kanya preference rather. Kasi yan yung, kumbaga, yan ay tulong mo, magiging tulong mo sa kanila. Yan sila eh. Di ba? Parang, for the longest time, lagi na lang pinapatunayan ng LGBT group yung kanilang worth sa society. And nagbunga naman yan. Di ba? Kumbaga, sila talaga yung kung sila magkakapatid, sila yung after mag-asawa lahat ng halimbawa 5 magkakapatid, isa doon ay bakla or tomboy, ganyan. Or bi, ganyan. Sila yung naiiwan sa parents. Sila yung nag-aaruga sa parents. Most often. Kaya na-avert na yung situation. Right? So when viewed in hindsight, or from an outsider's perspective, it is something hard to comprehend. Agitation and emotional fervor that can accompany a spiral of silence. So, coming from the outside, kung titingnan mo yung grupo na yan, halimbawa tayo, di ba? Hindi naman tayo halimbawa, sa isang school na sobrang for the elites, hindi naman natin afford doon, di ba? Pero, yung social isolation ng mga estudyanteng loners coming from or who studied on prestigious schools, mga pang sobrang mayayaman, di ba? Para sa atin na hindi naman na-experience yun, ganun. Parang, minsan nga, maliit na bagay lang na yung Crayola niya, halimbawa, is not 64, yung 24 lang, parang ina-isolate na kagad siya. Para sa atin, kami nga okay na sa amin yung 8. Bakit kailangang i-isolate kumbaga kasi, kumbaga, okay naman na 24 lang. Dami-dami naman ng 24 crayons. Diba? Kami nga 8 lang, okay na. Misa nga 16 lang, okay na. Kailangan i-bully, i-isolate. Yun, hindi natin maintindihan. Kasi wala tayo. Kumbaga, medyo mahirap siyang i-grasp na may ganoong nangyayaring situation sa isang social group. Ganon. Na bilang outsider, hindi naman din, kumbaga, kung hindi ka, kumbaga, halimbawa, kung hindi ka belong to that social group, mahirap siyang i-grasp. Bakit ganun? Napakasimple para sa ibang tao, napakasimple. Pero dun sa mga nakaka-experience nun, ng big deal sa kanila. Diba? So, alam niyo naman, pag nakakapanood kayo ng high school drama, diba? May mga isolation, may mga mean girls, ganyan. So, yung bidang babae, siya lagi yung inaapi-api, ganyan. So, isa, lang, diba sa Korean drama, maliliit na bagay lang yung pambubuli na ginagawa sa babae, sa bidang babae, pero bakit? Dito ka sa Pilipinas, worse pay, gano'n. Hindi natin maintindihan. Pero yun yung form kasi nila to seek approval. If they don't want to seek approval, lalayo na lang sila. Okay? Right. So now we move with social media and the spiral of silence. Ano ba ang connection ng social media and spiral of silence? All right. Medyo malawak ito. So let's try our best to simplify. A major insight in human behavior from pre-internet era studies of communication is the tendency of people not to speak up about policy issues in public or among their families, friends, and work colleagues when they believe their own point of view is not widely shared. This tendency is called the spiral of silence. So yun nga. During the time na hindi pa, or pre-internet era, wala pang internet. Alright? Yan na, definition ng spiral of silence. True enough. Na-discuss na natin. Now, some social media creators and supporters have hoped that social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter might produce different enough discussion venues that those with minority views might feel freer to express their opinion, thus broadening public discourse and adding new perspective to every discussion of political issues. Alright? So, ito nga, diniscuss naman dito yung spiral of silence. Yan. So dito na tayo. Kaya inulit lang dito, in-emphasize lang, ito po siya ni Elizabeth Noel Newman, na ang spiral of silence ay yung pagbibigay ng opinion. Pagka, halimbawa, tanggap yung opinion, seeking for approval. So ngayon, yung ibang mga social media creators, nagkaroon sila ng pag-asa na siguro by using these platforms, Facebook, Twitter, even Instagram, di ba? Yung mga smallest creators or itong mga ibang public or some of members of the society can speak up their opinions. And mawawala sa kanila yung burden ng isolation. Or magkakaroon sila ng freedom to express more. Because meron ng platform. Yan ang pananaw nila ha. Nung nagsisimula ang Facebook and the internet. And somehow, it's prevalent na ngayon, nangyayari na siya. Diba? Ngayon nagkaroon tayo ng so much control. Minsan nga, konting kibot, parang umabot na sa point na konting kibot na lang kahit walang bumabasa ng tweet mo or ng post mo, ipopost mo siya. Kulang na lang, pwede ka na makidnap. ATM at the milk tea store. ATM at Pandayan bookstore, bibili ng materials for the project. Alright? So, kumbaga, nagkaroon tayo ng platform to express. Opinions mo yun. Minsan nga, worst pa ginagawang venue for ranting and showing off your anger, yung pagpo-post. Di ba? Pero ngayon, mapapansin natin, dahil hindi naman tayo nakakapagkita-kita ng harapan, merong ibang impact. Whatever you post has a greater impact as compared before na meron tayong face-to-face. Alright, so move muna natin. Hold that thought, yung impact. Since today's media environment is undergoing continual refinement at rapid speed, researchers are able to find new ways to apply the theory. Although, scholars remain divided as to whether the theory's spiraling effect is applicable in today's digital media environment. The theory nonetheless remains influential because it has been studied today more so than in previous years. Kasi parang nag-evolve na siya. Meron pa ba yung spiraling? Meron pa ba yung may effect pa ba yung unpopular opinion? they keep silent. Yung popular opinion, are they still dominant? Natin. The theory, the internet, particularly social media, has opened new research avenues for scholars who want to conduct efficient and cost-effective studies, including multiple countries. Regardless of whether the theory is applied to traditional or digital media, communication scholars can agree that the theory makes important contribution towards explaining individual behaviors and attitudes arising from media consumption. In particular, the theory is closely studied. It reveals that public opinion is neither transitory nor random. So meaning to say, nagkakaroon na ng iba't ibang ginamitan na siya ng nagkakaroon ng bagong damit, ng bagong bihis ang public opinion. Diba? Kumbaga, the theory has gradually changed already. They agree na ang individual behavior and attitude towards the media consumption ay contributory na doon sa spiral of science, sa public opinion. All right? So, moving forward, so in today's partisan media environment, consumers are exposed to a wide variety of different media stories. The ideological identities of these stories are just as diverse as the way they are expressed. However, despite the differing partisan lenses in a given issue, consumers may not be able to perceive rational arguments on such political spectrum in an objective manner. Thus, a troubling question can arise. Are consumers missing important information that could completely change their viewpoints or given issue? If this question were applied in the spiral of silence, the spiraling process could essentially be overturned, thus reversing a deeply embedded public opinion. So parang ngayon, na-overturn na. Hindi na siya nagiging spiraling, hindi na nagiging, kumbaga lahat na ng tao nagkakaroon ng voice to express. Because of the platform. Diba? You have your own phone. Everyone has to have their own phones, have their own social media account. Diba? Kung di ko man masabi dito sa grupo na to, sa grupo na to, yung naharapan, yung opinion ko, I can post it on social media. Diba? Nagbablog. Blogspots. Diyan sulat lahat. Simply post it. Hindi na siya nanatili. Tinatago niya yung kanyang opinion. Because somewhere, he's hopeful that somewhere around the world, kung may makabasa ng post niya, makakahanap pa rin siya ng campaign. Hindi man doon sa particular group na gusto niyang sabihan. Somehow, sa ibang tao. Kaya somehow, averted na yung spiraling, na yung hindi sang-ayon doon sa pananaw mo, ay talagang wala ka na lang sasabihin. Ngayon, nagkaroon na ng freedom because lumawak na siya dahil nagkaroon ka na rin ng platform to express kung ano yung hindi mo masabi doon sa isang grupo. At makakahanap ka ng grupo na tatanggap doon sa opinion. Yan. So ngayon, doon sinabi ko na kung ano na yung sinasabi mo sa social media nowadays, ay nagkakaroon na rin ng effect sa iyong behavior, tulad sa sinabi kanina. Alright? Kasi di ba ngayon, hindi naman tayo nakakapagkita ng harap-harapan. Minsan, ang alam natin kung ano ka in person, sometimes hindi ka gano'n in the digital world. Kaya mayroon tayong tinatawag na digital self. Kung sino ka as a person, in person, sa personal, naiiba siya. Diba? May, kumbaga pagka nasa digital platform ka, may iba kang persona. Diba? Halimbawa, parang si Sarah Geronimo. Si Sarah Geronimo, pag wala siya sa stage, mahiyain, kumbaga very prim and proper. Pero di ba, once na she steps on the stage, nag-iiba, nagta-transform. Performer, world class. Parang gano'n na lang dito sa digital self. Di ba? Iba yung naipo-project natin sa digital platform as compared sa kung sino tayo in person. Pero ngayon, dahil lesser yung interaction natin sa personal, nagbe-base tayo ngayon ng mga opinions natin towards other people. Kung ano yung ipinopost mo sa social media mo. Diba, ang content lagi ng social media mo, laging rant, lagi kang galit, parang lagi kang may kaaway. So ang perception sa'yo ng tao, palaaway ka, may hot-headed ka, kumbaga ano ka, yung may negative. Kaya ngayon, nowadays, let's be very sensitive or be very critical when we post something online. Kasi doon ka kagad ma-judge ng tao. Hindi mo man gustong ma-judge, pero doon ka talaga hahatulan ng tao. Kasi yun yung nakikita nila. Hindi ko ba rin, hindi ngayon ma-i-apply na yung first impression last. Kasi hindi mo naman mai-explain yung sarili mo na as a personal pala, hindi pala siya ganun. Hindi pala siya masungit. Ganyan. Sa social media lang pala siya masungit. Hindi na eh. Lesser na nga exposure natin sa personal eh. Diba? Ang nakita natin more on social media. Kaya kung ano yung pinoproject mo na pagkatao mo sa social media, diyan ka natitingnan ng tao. So let's be very careful. Whatever we project on social media. Ingat. Kasi mas marami kang audience dyan as compared sa face-to-face. Halimbawa, pag dumating yung panahon na magkaroon ng face-to-face, ilan lang yung makakita sa'yo in person sa klase. Di ba? 40. Marami na yung 100. Halimbawa sa social media, meron kang 5,000 or 10,000 followers. Di ba? Kung ano yung pinost mo sa social media, 10,000 kagad na makakita. Alright? Sige, let's just I think mahaba. Ay, hindi. Sige, we'll just finish this. Yan. So, moving forward, so this will be the last part for today. So, 4 main parts of the spiral of silence. So, let's have this. When the theory was first proposed in 1974, Noel Newman sought to explain how one's opinion depends on the opinion of others around them. Right? Specifically, she explained the interplay behind the trends gained public support. True enough. Combining Noel Newman's intensive description of the theory, the spiral of silence key tenets can be summarized into 4 propositions. These propositions are, there is a quasi-statistical organ that people use to monitor the prevailing opinion. Number 2, public opinions trigger a spiraling process that reveals the majority opinion. Third, those individuals or group who voice minority opinion are threatened with social isolation. Ihiwalay sila, di sila papansinin, they will be ignored. And future opinion dictates the likelihood of one's voicing their opinion in public. All right, so let's have this, the first one. The first proposition, the quasi-statistical organ. The first proposition of Noel Newman posits that each individual has a quasi-statistical organ to monitor the prevailing opinion in a given issue. Explaining further, Noel Newman outlined how this sense functioned when she wrote to read what are and what are not. socially accepted views and behavior is in any given situation. So in other words, the easiest way to find the dominant opinion is to find it in display in public. The quasi statistical sense tells us the social interaction is at the heart of the theory. Kung ano yung napag-uusapan. O kung ano yung displayed sa public, yun ang dominant opinion. So that is yung quasi-statistical. Kung ano yung nababasa, yun. Ina-explanation ng quasi-statistical monitoring or organ. Monitor the prevailing opinion in a given issue. Kung ano yung published or displayed, yun siya. Humans are, for the most part, sensitive to the opinion of others. True enough. Lagi tayong conscious kung ano sabihin ng ibang tao. We're really gearing. We're really just striving to belong to a group. Also, humans want to be well liked by their peers and will tend to avoid performing acts like that will lead peer alienation. Diba? Parang it's a good thing. Parang human nature na maghanap ka ng acceptance and approval. May makasama kang tao. Socializing. Right? However, it can be argued that this dominant opinion must be displayed repetitively in media and real life, as there are isolated incidents such as crimes that may be displayed in isolated area with little and no set of social isolation. So, kailangan naman daw itong mga yung mga public opinion na to, ay mga dominant opinion na to, ay paulit-ulit na nade-display sa social media. Sa media and real life. Para masabi natin na siya ay dominant opinion or the public opinion. Alright? Pero may mga cases nga hindi naman. Kasi nga, halimbawa, kung maliit lang talaga yung halimbawa, ilan lang talaga yung population. O hindi naman talaga, tulad halimbawa, ito, may it be displayed isolated there with little no threat of social isolation. Wala, kayo lang naman. Bakit pa magkakaroon ng threat of social isolation? This is more on the group, mas malaking audience. Right? So yan yung quasi-organ. Merong, kung ano yung paulit-ulit na dinidisplay at namomonitor siya yun. Alright? Next. Proposition number 2, public opinion and the spiraling process. So, i-reiterate lang natin that, and also i-explain lang natin, according to Elizabeth Noel Newman, that the role of public opinion and the interplay of popular opinion in the spiraling process. Noel Newman defined public opinion as a method of popularity when she wrote, public opinion is the opinion that can be voiced in public without fear of sanction and upon which action in public can be based. So hindi tayo natatakot to voice out our opinion kasi matatanggap siya. Hindi ka mapaparusahan. How is it spiraling? All right, let's find out. On a larger scale, public opinion can be defined as the sum of the private opinions that are voiced without fear of retribution or reprisal. So pinagsama-sama na rin mga boses na opinions, ganito, ganyan. Kaya yun na hindi ka natatakot kasi alam mo natatanggapin siya. Alright? Keep in mind that this opinion are expressed and does not include the opinions that are not expressed. One of the theories hallmark is that it encourages individuals hold in minority to remain silent. Yun nga, nag-spiral down yung silence, na diminish na lang. Through the explanation kanina. Hindi na lang sinasabi. Kaya spiraling down yung kanyang opinion. tahimik na lang. Next proposition is the threat of isolation. To explain this further, ito nga, let's have this. After spiraling, the spiraling process has finished. Tahimik na. Di wala na, kumbaga, uplifted na ako ano yung majority na opinion, yung hindi popular na opinion, yung hindi masyadong tanggap na opinion, or madi-disapprove na opinion, ay tahimik na lang. The majority opinion appears, compelling people to follow it. Otherwise, isolation. Ay, pag di mo susunod, di ka kasali. Ay, di ka lang papansinin. Many researchers have found that an individual would likely express an opinion if it has social support and vice versa. Ay, maraming kakampi. Sige na nga. Para lang di ako maiwan. Yun. Yun yung key. This obligation to follow the majority opinion has been conceptualized as social control. Sometimes peer pressure. Dahil ayaw mong maiwan eh. Sige na nga, go na lang ako. Kahit iba yung opinion ko. Yan na. Ayaw mo kasing mapag-iwanan. Alright? O, halimbawa, ano to? Yung popular opinion na dapat at the age of 25, mag-aasawa na. Kasi, diba, kasi pag tumanda ka pa ng beyond, pag hindi ka nag-asawa at the age of 25, yung mga magiging anak mo, ang tanda-tanda mo na nagpapaaral ka pa. Ganyan. Hindi mo nakikita, baga, 60 ka na, may high school ka pa. Hindi mo na makikita ang tumanda yung mga anak mo. So, nagkakaroon ng, magiging maiwanan ka. Minsan sinasabi ko, maiwanan ka ng biyahe. Diba? So, yan yung popular opinion. Kaya yung ibang mga kababae, kaya yung mga babae, siguro yung mga lalaki din, o lahat na, sama na natin lahat. Hindi lang naman babae ang dapat mag-asawa. Ang pinipilit mag-asawa, di ba? Even men, di ba? Parang, kahit hindi sila ready, at the age of 25, kahit di nila masyadong mahal yung tao, pakakasalan nila. O ano ngayon yung nagiging baka sakali, gano'n, baka naman makachamba sa sapilitang. Mabait naman ganyan. Baka naman magbago. Nagbago yung trend ng society. Diba? Karamihan doon sa mga lumabas on a social research, yung mga nagpumilit lang na makasabay sa trend. Ano na nangyari? Mas dumami ang broken families. Kasi sila yung mga natakot na maging mag-isa. O ano ngayon nangyari? Mas naging mag-isa sila. O ngayon, ano naging repercussion? Yung generation ngayon, like my generation, tinanggap na lang. Hindi, yung mga parents nowadays, nakikita na rin nila na because pinilit yung mga young professionals o yung mga nasa edad na 25, 24, ganyan, na mag-asawa agad-agad. Ending, naghiwalay din. So yung ngayon, ang naging opinion ngayon, sige, okay lang, huwag ka muna mag-asawa kahit 30 ka na. Kasi nakita na nila yung actual na nangyari na mas dumami ang broken families. Hindi naman mas marami, tumaas ang rate ng separation. Pero naman tayong divorce. Tapos gusto pa i-push yung divorce. Ayan pa, umabot pa sa point na gusto na i-push yung divorce. Because yan yung effect. Diba? During, kaming mga, kami inabutan na hindi mo na talaga nag-settle, di ba? Tanggap na rin ng majority. Hindi na kami pinipilit. Kasi nakita na nila yung effect. Karamihan doon sa mga napaka-dalang o yung mga nakaswerte talaga ng pangasawa nila ay talagang kabiyak talaga nila. Kasi majority is globally is yung pumatol na dapat 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 mag-asawa ka na, ganyan, 25 ka na, 26 ka na, baka mag-30, mag-asawa ka na, ganyan. So, ano naging ending? Di walay din. Hindi naman lahat. Napakaswerte nung hindi nahiwalay. Diba? Napakapalad. Diba? Pero yung iba, nakita na nila yung effect na ang nagsasuffer yung naging bunga nung ganung relationship, mga anak. So, hindi na nila pinipilit. Naintindihan na rin nila na career muna. Hindi naman minamadali yan. Ilan lang yung nagsasabi. Ilan lang yung parents na nagsasabi na, sige, take your time. Pagka naman nag-establishado ka na, tsaka ka na lang, pag may sarili ka ng ipon, tsaka ka umanap ng life partner or ipanalangin mo ang life partner. Nabago na. Actually, nabago na yan ganyan. Pananaw sa buhay. Pansinin nyo yung mga artista din naman, hindi naman agad-agad nag-aasawa nga. Sama-sama si Bea Alonso, kaganda-ganda. Sino pa? Nag-asawa, hindi pa nagjojowa. Si Angelica Panganiban, matanda pa sa akin yun. Si Bea Alonso, matanda pa sa akin yun. Career. O lalo mga Koreans, sino to? Yung mga actors and actresses. Si Gong Yoo, hindi pa nag-aasawa. So, mga Gong Yoo dyan. Sa babae, sino ba? Si Park Shin. Hindi. Bata pa si Park Shin. Si Park Min Young, si Secretary Kim. Diba? Ang ganda-ganda pa rin. Kung may boyfriend siya. Sino yun? Yung nasa Instagram, ilusumi na. Si Mina. Nakalimutan ko yung first name niya. Basta Mina. Mina yata. Mina pangalan. Diba? Hindi sila baga career muna sila. Yung mga idols. Ngayon, kung kailan sila, baga, habang may fans, go lang. At hindi disbanded ang grupo, go lang. Diba nga si Chen, chika tuloy si Chen. Mag-aasawa na si Chen, ayaw pa ng fans. Binoboycott si Chen. Diba? Baga, nabaliktad na ang mundo. Right? So this may not be the best conception because going back to the first proposition, public opinion is heavily influenced by the media. The media, of course, does not tell people what to think, but what to think about. What to think. Hindi ko ano yung iisipin mo, but kung ano yung dapat mong isipin. Hindi ko ano yung iniisip mo, kung ano yung dapat mong isipin. This is true in democracies such as the US and Germany. Diba? Kaya nga, lumakas din ang loob ng mga kaedad ko, mga kabatch ko. Okay lang yan. Hindi na minamadali yan. Si ganito nga kasi nakikita natin sa social media, si Bea Alonso nga, kami naman, din mo kami sila Bea Alonso, sila Angelica Panganiban. Diba? So nakikita natin it has become a trend na hindi na pinupush yung 25 dapat mag-asawa. Ganun. Right? Next is proposition number 4, the likelihood of opinion expressed. So, itong third kasi, kung ano na yung dominating, dapat yun ang susundin mo. Diba? Kakaroon ng pressure, social control. Yun. Ngayon, the likelihood of opinion expressed. The fourth proposition states that the future opinion on an issue dictates the likelihood of an individual proposition or opinion in public. In general, the prevailing opinion is likely to stand as firm as it will in the future. This likely owes to the previous proposition because When people make a habit of advocating or condemning a popular opinion in public, the surge of onlookers create intense pressure to maintain the status quo. So, kumbaga, pag nag-exist na yung opinion na yan, gusto lang nila prevailing. Otherwise, kung meron mang iba't may hahalili na mas stronger opinion, tsaka lang siya mapapalitan. However, a hardcore individual or group may express their opinion anyways and not care about whether their opinion is lambasted by society. Right? So, meron naman na kahit may mga especially yung mga scholars, na may ipinaglalaban sila about about their belief on an idea. Diba? Like for example, yung sa feminism, si Judith Butler, diba? Ang opinion niya towards gender, it's performative. Diba? Sinabi nga niya, you perform your gender. So there's no gender from the very beginning. That's why it's controversial. Para sa kanya, walang gender from the very beginning. It is what you perform. Yun ang gender. Halimbawa, kung halimbawa, you act out like as if you are a man, then you're a man. If you're feminine, then somehow you're related to being a woman, even though you're a man. So performative daw. Iyan, opinion na yan ni Judith Butler ay masyadong controversial. Kasi it opposes na dapat ang gender mo ay assigned. Ito, kung babae ka, meron kang sa biological mo, ito ang meron ka. Kung lalaki ka, biologically, ito ang meron ka. Yan na ang dinedefine. From the beginning, merong gender, merong sex. So, kumbaga, may expression naman na. And most likely, yung mga nag-express ng kanilang unpopular opinion, wala silang pakialam kasi hodang sila ay maging controversial. Pero, kilala sila. Yan. While the hardcore variable may suffer from egotistic bias or egocentric bias, talagang discourage ka, hindi ka na, kumbaga mababash ka rin at some point. However, there is no denying that they will be less affected by the spiral of silence. Oo naman, hindi siya ma-affect ng spiral of silence. Kasi in-express niya yung sarili. Now, have praised. So si Lang and Lang have praised the hardcore because they think strategically in the sense that they accomplished their goal as opposed to becoming distracted by the social opinion. Pagka you successfully opposed a norm, at yan ang bagong pinaniwalaan, very inspiring. Diba? Parang sa lang yan. Sa mga napapanood nating drama. Diba? Na kung ano yung hindi kung sino yung nabubuli dati, sila na yung nagiging. Kumbaga, dahil tama yung kanilang pinaniniwalaan at nangyari yung kanilang pinaniniwalaan. It's, yun na yung bagong pinaniwalaan. Parang halimbawa lang, story ni Moses before we end. Diba, hindi siya pinaniniwalaan ng mga Israelites, nung bumalik siya, diba? Nung siya ay kinasiya na binigyan na siya ng binigyan na siya, may gift na sa kanya si Lord. Nang na-meet na niya si Lord, binigyan na siya or blessed na siya with the Spirit. Diba? Nang bumalik siya, ay siya paniwalaan ng mga Egyptians, lalo ng mga Egyptians, diba? And also yung mga Israelites, ay siyang paniwalaan. Diba, ang dami niyang pinerform na iba't ibang mga miracles. And iba't iba, nagpadala pa ng plagues and different different showcase ng power ni God na nasa side ni Moses. Siya lang mag-isa. Pero hindi siya, kumbaga, he opposes doon sa paniniwala ng mga na nakamulatan ng mga Egyptians, ang Egypt, at saka ng mga Israelites. Pero nung na-overcome niya lahat yun, siya na ngayon yung bagong, kumbaga, na-save niya ang Israel. Mga Israelites doon sa kamay ng paganism, pagan god ni Pharaoh. Diba? Kumbaga, nasa sayo kung papaapekto ka in life, translating this in life, nasa sayo kung papaapekto ka at mananahimik ka na lang dun sa alam mo, sa opinion na tingin mo ay tama. Yes, mababash ka at some point. Pero pag na-experience ng tao na tama pala yung sinasabi, diba? That's the time na may worth yung hindi mo pagsama sa spiral of silence. Diba? Doon sa story ni Moses, ang ultimate trial doon is yung the sacrifice of the firstborns. Siyempre, hindi naniwala kay Moses. So, ang paniniwala ay paganism. Ayun ang popular ng panganahon na yun. Hindi sila naglagay ng blood ng tupa sa doors nila. So, ano nangyari? Nung dumaan ngayon yung salot, nung namatay yung mga firstborns ng mga hindi naniniwala pa rin sa popular opinion about the popular opinion na paganism. Or the popular or the dominant opinion. What's dominant during that time? Dominant idea na paganism. Hindi sila naniniwala doon sa sa Diyos ni Moses. Nung maapektuhan sila nung plague because binalaan na sila ni Moses sa pinaniniwalaang Diyos ni Moses. Doon nagkaroon ng aversion of reality and belief. And lalo na yung mga talagang from the very beginning ay naniniwala kay Moses at sa Diyos na kanyang naniniwala. So same goes sa atin. Walang naniniwala about the COVID virus, ganyan. Wala yan. Diba? Especially sa Amerikas, joke time lang daw yung COVID. O ano nangyari nung pinakita, ang daming namamatay, tapos may kumakalat ng mga videos about do sa ang sitwasyon ng isang COVID patient, yung naka-intubate, diba? At sa time na talagang narate lang buong mundo. Nag-announce kagad ng nag-lockdown because tumaas ang rates ng mga namamatay. So, nagkaroon na ng expression. Kahit mga pinakamaliliit na tao, nagkakaroon na ng expression of their opinions. And somehow, it turned out na totoo, nagkakatotoo. Because na-experience na rin ng majority na naniniwala dun sa lumang opinion. Yun ang ngayon naging bagong opinion. Or bagong idea. Right? I hope everything is clear. Alright, so any questions? So if you have questions, you can just message it on our messenger. Or you can ask that, or keep that, and then we'll answer that on our next synchronous session. So that will be all for now. Thank you for listening, and God bless. Stay safe, guys.